open session. Mr. Terpstra, could you give us a readout of closed session, please?
Certainly, Mr. Mayor, members of the council and staff, the council did meet in closed session to approve progress payments on 2 legal matters. No other reportable action was taken.
Thank you. All right, can you please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance? Mr. Euchre, would you like to lead us?
Sure.
And please remain standing for the invocation after.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Brett Dode, and I'm the pastor here at Calvary Reformed, and I was asked to open this meeting with the invocation, so let's join in a word of prayer. Father, thank you so much for each and every single person gathered here today, God, and we thank you for the city council and the staff and all the gifts and talents that you've endowed upon them. God, leadership is hard. And so we pray for them, God, that you would endow them with wisdom beyond their natural abilities, and God, that you would help them have wisdom from above. God, help them to govern justly and with righteousness on their mind and love for those that inhabit this city. And Jesus, in all things, help us to seek you in all that we do. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
What do you, oh, Dean's signed out here.
My computer's not on.
Unless we just hit connect.
Thank you.
All right. Lisa, can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Tim Wheeler,
Present.
Leo Zuber,
Present.
Mike Restuccia,
Present.
Vice Mayor Dean Euchre,
Here.
Mayor Daniel DeGraff.
Here. All right, moving on to public discussions. Times for the public to address items that are not on the agenda. If there's anybody that'd like to speak, they can come to the front to address items. Seeing none, I think Lisa has one that was submitted online.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have an email that was received as a public comment regarding COVID mandates, passports and businesses, and children's safety. Her comment did exceed the limit of the 250 words, so I will be reading the 250 words out as public comment here for the record, and I will be forwarding the email to the City Council. It was received from a Kimberly R. Vandermotten. She states, as a mother and a nurse of 28 years, I must speak to these mandates. I am beyond deeply disturbed at the whole handling of a virus that of itself has been around for 60 years and one of many of the common cold. This virus, we now know, has been engineered by the very one we are following for treatment recommendations and made more potent, and using his authority to stir us into such fear that we would rather yield to the degree we would surrender our freedoms and reasoning. We behave like we think it follows us in the clouds or hides to jump out and get us if we don't live to wear a useless face covering, no matter the virus is too small to be stopped by even a surgical mask. But we've ingested a whopper of lies, looking like total fools, wearing masks even alone in the car. The effects removes our personal identities and that of our children, risks to their spiritual and psychological health and growth, and fosters intimidation from dissension. And we are losing our humanity with one another. Now the fears suppress our reasoning into believing this new experimental jab is safe to recommend for children. This injection stenched very, very liberally to even be called a vaccine, which the CDC wrote on its own website, if anyone cared to read the fine print, and indeed is being evidence that it cannot give immunity, no protection from transmission of COVID-19. Then why are they being mandated? And I will be forwarding this on to you guys as well.
All right, thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. I apologize for my lack of understanding. Is this the time in which we would make our discussions for the placement?
This is for items not on the
Okay,
agenda.
thank you very much.
Is there anybody else who would like to comment on anything that's not on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to approval of the minutes for the regular meeting on October 12th and special meeting on October 28th.
So move.
Is there a second? Motion and a second. Take it off the paper pad, it'll work better.
Check the bottom of the mouse. Turned off.
Okay, so approval of the agenda, does anybody have anything to pull?
Yes, I'd like to pull 1.2D to abstain.
1.2D, okay, so is there approval of the agenda as amended?
I'll move to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
Is there approval of the consent calendar as amended?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, and then 1.2D, only reason you pulled it is because you need to abstain from the vote? Yes?
Correct. I'm on the board.
Okay, so is there a motion to approve 1.2D? Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, end of consent calendar. Resolution 2A. I believe this is for Ken?
Yeah, like many items. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, fellow council members. Before we get started on this item, I do want to just kind
Yeah,
of preface.
Can I stop you a second?
Yeah, sure.
Sorry. I just wanted to go back to the end of the consent calendar. I'm not sure what
Yeah.
we're at.
Yeah, aye.
1.4I. Just wanted to make an announcement. Last week, we presented a proclamation to, maybe the week before, to the American Legion Auxiliary Post, proclaiming November as Veterans and Military Families Month. So we had a ceremony where we presented that to them, and yeah, just wanted to recognize the sacrifices and the service that our veterans and their families give, and wanted to honor them through making that known. So I know it's on here, that proclamation was given and received already, so just wanted to recognize that and address it, so thank you. Sorry, you can carry on now.
No worries, thank you. Over the last several meetings, the council's been discussing a couple items, and they're a little bit interrelated, but you're going to see 4 items here on the agenda tonight. We've been talking about the COVID restrictions and the emergency order that the city has in place that allows businesses to operate outside the, with waivers outside the Ripon Municipal Code. So there's a couple items on the agenda tonight dealing with the emergency services ordinance and the waivers that were granted to businesses. And then there's a second, other 2 items on the agenda that deal with outside dining. So dining on sidewalk and dining in public right-of-ways. And those 2 are items that are really for the council to consider, kind of minus the pandemic restrictions and stuff. So keeping those 2 separate would be important to note. So this first item is actually a resolution that was, the city council did adopt a resolution that set the suspension date of the waivers for COVID to the November 30th date of the November 30, 2021. Since that time, staff has been discussing with the city attorney on some items, and we are recommending that we rescind that resolution that was adopted, 21-40, which was adopted at the August meeting. We have later in the agenda an item where we have amended the ordinance, which is the appropriate way to actually regulate these waivers. So the recommendation in front of you tonight on this item 2A would be to adopt this resolution, which is rescinding Resolution 2140. So with that, I will turn it over to you, Mr. Mayor, and be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Is there any questions from the council?
I have one. At this point, the resolution in effect says that everything goes to the end of this month, and then we go back to the rules the way they were. Right?
Correct.
If we adopt this resolution,
You're essentially,
now what are the rules?
you're essentially going back to our municipal code, chapter 2.32, which deals with emergency services ordinance, which has no time limit on it. Council can put a time limit on it as they see fit.
So the
we've
things that we've permitted now would go on
Indefinitely.
indefinitely unless we rewrite the ordinance.
Correct.
Okay. I understand. I think.
That's it.
Is there any other questions, comments? Any questions, comments from the public? Is there a motion to move forward with on this?
I'll make a motion, we approve.
I'll second.
Okay, 3A, public hearings, San Joaquin County Multi-Species Habitat Conservation and Open Space Plan 2022 fee update. Ken?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, fellow council members. This is kind of our annual item. We get a report from SJCOG yearly about this time, how they adjust the habitat fees either up or down. I've only seen them go down once in my time here, so they typically go up. As you're seeing again, there is an increase in the fees this year. It's always based on actual land prices and actual costs of doing enhancements on those lands for habitat. This program is a voluntary program, so developers coming in wishing to do development projects can either participate in the program, pay the fee, and that meets their needs for fish and game and U.S. wildlife for as far as habitat mitigation, or they can choose to work directly with the habitat, with the fish and game and U.S. wildlife. This is more of a streamlined plan, so a lot of times developers just do pay the fee. It gets them to their finish point of their project earlier. But they do have an option to opt out if they don't want to and work directly. So this is not a mandatory fee that they would have to pay, but this is kind of the habitat plan fee for the SJCOG here.
It's a mitigation for
Loss of,
not having to go out and
right.
find ground or whatever to mitigate for on their own. They can just pay the fee and be done with it.
Correct.
Or they
So
can go mitigate otherwise.
So you're
This has been
seeing
in
about a 12.7% increase of the fees from last year. They're in the staff report here, so with that, I will turn it over to you, Mr. Mayor, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. This is a public hearing, so we would want to open that up.
I just have one comment. This has been in place for what, 20-plus years? 2000, okay, 20 years.
20 exactly years. Any other questions or comments?
Well, I have one.
Okay.
It sort of builds off of what Mr. Zeidevart said about the fees going up and down. They have gone down. In 2018, the fee was $9,700. In 2020, it was $6,400. Now, in 2022, it'll be back up to $9,700. And it's all driven by the price of land and how much it costs to buy the property that they use to set aside for the wildlife. So land prices went down, the fee went down. Land prices are going through the roof, so the fee's going back up. But in 5 years, we're right back where we were 5 years ago. So,
Any additional comments from the council? No, this is a public hearing, so we'll open the public hearing if there's anybody from the public that would like to speak on it. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing, and is there a motion to approve this?
Second.
Okay, 3B, Development Agreement Annual Review. Mr. Zeidevart.
Yes, I'll take that one too. Again, this is a kind of a yearly housekeeping item that we have to go through pursuant to government code section that's listed in the staff report. We have to review all the current development agreements that are still active, and the planning commission reviews them and makes a report to city council, making sure they're all in compliance in good faith with the terms that are therein. The planning commission did meet last month and reviewed all the development agreements and recommended that the council accept this staff report as their written report from the planning commission that they are in good faith, in compliance in good faith. There's a list of the active development agreements as well as all the development agreements we've had from day one in the past. This is more or less, we keep track of all those because there is items in each of the development agreements that do supersede the expiration date of the development agreement. The development agreements basically have an expiration of 10 years after they are adopted. Basically, it protects from new fees coming up, and it also basically gives them the entitlement rights. So those are what expires in development agreements. However, if there's anything spelled out in a development agreement, such as setback requirements and such, those do not expire ever. That's why we keep track of all those. So the list looks long. There's a lot of red ones listed on that list that are the ones that have expired, so those are not the active ones that we're reviewing. There is 9 of them that are considered active on the list, and they're spelled out in the staff report for you. And I will turn this back over to you, Mr. Mayor. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any on the active DAs. If not, this is a public hearing again, so we
Yep.
can open up for that.
Any questions from the council?
No, pretty clear.
No, pretty straightforward. Okay, we'll open up the public hearing. Anyone from the public want to comment? Seeing none again, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Nothing online. Okay, close public hearing. And with that, look for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, 3C, vacation abandonment of a portion of public right-of-way adjacent to 710 Jacktone Road.
Yes.
You again, Ken. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Last public hearing for tonight. This is a public hearing to take the final step for an abandonment of a partial right-of-way. The Planning Commission some time ago did approve a project at Jacktone Canal for a gas station and car wash. There was some extra right-of-way that was dedicated to the city some time ago in like 2007 when the Tractor Supply and all that came in. They were anticipating putting a roundabout there at some point in time, so we got extra right-of-way at that time. Now the ultimate plan for that intersection, if and when Jacktone Road widens out and Canal extends west, would be to do a full signal there. So we relinquished that extra right-of-way, and they're going to be using that as part of their project. They've gone through a couple steps where actually the city council did adopt a resolution allowing the process to begin. The Planning Commission acted on that item to have a public hearing to see if anybody had any comments on that. And then tonight would be the final step for the council to adopt a resolution enacting that abandonment process here for that. The property's been posted appropriately, and we have sent out the appropriate public notices on it. And so with that, I will turn it back over to you, Mr. Mayor. There's a recommended action in here for you. And there is, again, this is a public hearing.
Any questions? Seeing none, okay, we will open up public hearing. Anybody from the public would like to comment? Any online? No. We will close the public hearing, and is there a motion to adopt the resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All right, ordinances. Ken, I think this is you again. You got
Yep,
a
and I
list of
got
a
the
few
next
here,
4, so, yes, this says the emergency ordinance that we just spoke about. This is the resolution that you adopted that rescinded Resolution 2140. This is the ordinance that actually includes the language now, amended language in it, that is where we should appropriately be placing these items for allowing us to be able to waive some of our regulations during the COVID-19 pandemic. So if you look through the proposed ordinance in the red line version there, under, section, actually, red line version is an attachment. So under section 2.32060, 6F, we did add some language in there that talked about how we would modify the waiver provisions. Basically, what's being proposed as the amendment would be to not approve any waiver or suspension of Ripon Municipal Code requirements which occur on or affect public property, and that the ordinance shall remain in effect until 30 days after the Governor of California lifts the state of emergency of California pertaining to COVID-19. So there is some businesses that have expanded their operations on private property, they would be allowed to stay until the governor removes the state of emergency of California pertaining to COVID-19. The ones that are in public right-of-way would not be allowed to stay, and we would follow the provisions a little bit later down here in the code that talk about we would have to send out a letter giving them 30 business days to remove those items from public right-of-way. So that's the proposed amendment in front of you tonight, to be placed in it's an emergency ordinance that would be first reading and adoption tonight. So with that, I will turn it back over to you, Mr. Mayor. We'd be happy to answer any questions or items on that if you have any.
I have one question, related to the state of emergency pertaining to COVID-19. I mean, suppose COVID goes away and 10 years from now, or 5 years from now, you have another state of emergency that it might apply to. It's called, or maybe it's because of a different virus that's not called COVID-19. Would it be worth taking that particular portion out so it applies to different scenarios? Or we want it specific to this? I mean, in 5 years, this just might not apply anymore.
Yeah, that's the thing about emergency ordinances, right? You're kind of basing them on the facts as you know them at that time, and that's what we did with this particular virus, and that's why we kind of left it particular to this. If we find ourselves in a number of years facing a different crisis, the different facts supporting urgency, so that's kind of why we left it the way it was.
Okay, that's fine.
We should have to redo it.
Well, that was gonna be so what you're saying is, we could leave it like this, and if, in the mayor's scenario, 25 years from now, there's another problem, the council at that time would come back into here and change this one sentence and say, instead of COVID-19, it would be whatever the problem is, and decide whether it's gonna be 30 days, 60 days, or whatever. They could change it, but they would have to change it.
That's correct, yeah.
And they could do it as an urgency ordinance, so it could happen that night.
That's right.
Okay, I got it.
No problems from me then.
No, it's pretty easy.
Any other questions? Any comments from the public?
Hi, Kim Anderson, 510 South Walnut, here in Ripon. I would encourage you, this seems to be written to go with your next discussion about the outdoor dining. It seems to me that this is just a way to, you've taken away the discretion from the director to grant any kind of a waiver in the public space, and I would encourage you to not do that. I mean, there could be circumstances where you'll want to consider even a temporary relief for some, and I know there's going to be more discussion on the specifics of the dining, but I'm not quite sure why this is a necessity. I think you could leave this more open-ended without this sentence in it. So that's my 2 cents. I would encourage you to not add this to the ordinance.
Is there anyone else who would like to make a comment? Any further discussion, comments? Tom, do you have anything to add, or?
Our recommendation remains.
Okay.
Well, as I understand what Mr. Terpstra told us, even though it removes the discretion on public property, if the council at sometime in the future decides that the director should have discretion, all they have to do is change this sentence at that point, and if it's done as an urgency matter, it's effective as soon as the vote's taken.
Right, and again, if you put this into, it's on the books, then if you put it in play down the road, you're gonna need to make urgency findings in that event anyway, at that time. Not just to invoke this, but also to invoke whatever other restrictions you might want to enact at that time, or leniences, I guess, if you would, from the code at that time. So, yeah, I think this is more or less a recognition that we're not gonna be able to have all of the eventualities gamed out in an ordinance. But the good thing about the law is that it allows us to enact urgency ordinances on relatively short notice.
Well, and in my mind, that added piece, while it may sound like it doesn't allow the city to react, it also affords some protection to the director so that he's not publicly put in a position where he, as an individual, has to make a decision that rightfully ought to be made by the people responsible for that decision, which is the people sitting up here.
Right.
We can do it as fast as 24 hours, because that's all you have to do to post a special meeting. You have the meeting, you make the decision, and move on.
Yeah, and again, distinguish too between urgency ordinances and emergency ordinances. We
Right.
shouldn't use those terms in the same meaning, right? Urgency ordinance would be a 24-hour, and emergency ordinance is immediate, based on, you know, impending peril. So, I think the authors of the government code in this area had some wisdom in terms of how they structured it, and I think that's what we tried to mirror in our ordinance.
Well, and if I look back over the last 20 months, we were pretty agile about doing that. I mean, there were some times we were sitting in here
3 times a week.
with, yeah, on 2 or
Yeah.
3 times a week to try to make those decisions to help the staff know how to deal with it.
Right.
I don't think it limits. I think it simply defines and makes us have to answer some
Well,
questions.
you have to put sort of the flesh on it, the contours of it, but
Right.
the basics of it are there, and that's what's permitted, so.
Any other discussion? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. 4B, Ken.
Yes, so again, over the last several council meetings, we've been discussing, like I said, the COVID-19 and the waivers, but also the outdoor dining. So outdoor dining, there's two chapters in our municipal code that deal with outdoor dining. One is chapter 544, which is this first item here we're discussing, that deals with sidewalk dining on public walkways. This ordinance has been in place for quite some time. Actually, the last time it was amended was 1999, so we went through the ordinance, kind of brushed it up from the direction we received from city council, in the desires to still keep sidewalk dining. We kind of put in a little bit better process for permitting of those, and some of the regulations that might go along with it, and produced an amended version of the sidewalk dining that's in front of you this evening. There is a red line version of that ordinance in your staff report. It's pretty red, just because we've added a lot of sections and kind of moved some things around. Might be a little hard to follow on that aspect, but really it was just more defining the process and the permitting process for it. So with that said, I will turn it back over to you, Mr. Mayor. We are looking to still allow for outdoor sidewalk dining in not just the downtown, but any of our commercial areas. They do have an opportunity to come in and get a permit for that. It is an annual permit, and then there is a renewal fee, which we would follow up with council with a resolution to set those fees. So with that being said, I'll turn it back over to you and be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, I have, Ken, 2 questions. One is, I think it's good you have, or Tom put in there the fact that it could be revoked if it's violated. And number 2, on the liability insurance, I think we should be listed as an additional insurer to lost pay or something on there, because if it ever gets canceled, that's how you get notified. That's 5.44.08, 100.
Yeah, that way you're not just,
And it doesn't say that we would be, they gotta carry it, but if it gets canceled, we're not gonna be notified. So I think in the actual policy,
Yeah, there would be a number of those types of things would be part of my office's approval. So we would, to the extent we can get an additional insured certificate, yes. There'll also be notice of cancellation, notice of revision type language. So those, in the amount and form subject to the approval of city attorney is inclusive of all of those requirements.
Okay, so we have this here, and then you've got your subcategories of the 4 or 5 things that you look at when it comes in.
Right, and we're in constant contact also with the RMA on how exactly these are worded and structured, because they're constantly handling that.
Okay, but here's a question, this is a public document, so if somebody pulls and looks at it and it doesn't say that, I think it's kind of constructive notice to the public if it's in there. Unless there's so many things that you don't want to put it all in there.
You'd be surprised,
Okay,
there's a lot,
as long as we're notified if it gets canceled.
yeah.
Yeah, it's nice if someone going to apply knows the process, but that assumes someone goes and reads the ordinance too and doesn't just call Ken, so.
Yeah, so we anticipate with the approval of the amended sidewalk dining ordinance, putting a application packet together, which could spell out the insurance requirements, because it does talk about on a form subject to the approval of the city attorney. So we would spell out, because that could change from time to time, depending
Right.
on recommendations.
Yeah, that avoids us having to come back and amend the ordinance if something changes
That's
too,
fine.
so.
Okay.
The other issue is the amount. It's not as simple as when we have a contractor doing a job for a specified amount, we get insurance up to that amount. Here, it's more or less on an operating basis, it's a little bit more difficult to define, but we'll work with RMA staff on that, and we
Okay.
can provide that for you.
Well, you clarified that, so that's good, thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
No, that's it.
Leo, nothing?
Nope, I have nothing.
Anyone else? Anyone from the public that would like to speak on this one? Yes. Okay.
Kim Anderson, 510 South Walnut. I'm realizing that some of the comments I'm about to make now are sort of moot because of the last item, so I'm going to go ahead with them anyway. Because the last item removed the discretion of the director to make any suspensions in public right-of-way outside of the outside dining ordinance, what that did was effectively eliminate the platform that's now out in front of A Matter of Taste. That was with the last ordinance. You know, but I did want to say, you know, it seems like most businesses didn't take advantage of being able to put the platforms or take advantage of the public right-of-way. Most of them had already outdoor dining. I mean, if you look at what we have downtown right now, you know, the Roadhouse has a patio, so does La Consuela. I think some of the folks across the street took advantage and put some tables that came out further into the sidewalk. But you look at all the new businesses over on River Road, and those, of course, all had their own outdoor dining spaces and could have music out there and do whatever they chose to do, which they do on a regular basis. Yeah, I think that what's happened is now you have had it's sort of an experiment downtown where you've had people come down, maybe people that would not have been down there before. You had live music, which is very pleasant, nice to sit. You know, it activates the downtown space. It brings people downtown that might otherwise not have been there. And now we're eliminating that, and it seems to me that there could have been some more discussion about making the platform smaller, you know, doing other more temporary measures maybe. You know, the Friday night dining down there with the live music, it brings people downtown and they see other businesses. And I know there's been ongoing conversation about the parking. I understand parking's a big deal. And it seemed like some of those businesses rightly had some complaints about some of their patrons not being able to come into the parking when they wanted to. And we all know what downtown's like on a Friday or Saturday night. It can be nearly impossible. But it seemed like there might have been some other solutions that you might have considered, making the platform smaller, not taking up so much of the public space. I just think you can be a little more progressive about this stuff. I think you get people downtown that might otherwise not be there, and they might come back and patronize some of the businesses during the day. So, I mean, if there is room, you know, realizing again that I probably should have said these comments earlier. Since we have done this, I would like to point out a couple things that are written into the ordinance. One is the ADA requirements are only for 4-foot clearance. You might consider at least making that amount of space that they can activate on the sidewalk a little more and get as much as they can out there in that front space. Would point out that road diets can sometimes have a positive effect. People are moving slower through your downtown. People might look more at your businesses and, notice what's going on out there more. And I, do encourage you to think about how to attract kind of a younger demographic that we're starting to see around Ripon these days. You've got lots of young families and people that are looking for things to do on Friday night, and live music can be one of the things that will attract those. This ordinance also has something in there about only background music. It kind of precludes having any kind of live music out front, and I think my notes on that would be, I don't always want to hear the football game going on Friday night on the loudspeaker 10 blocks away from the stadium, but I'm not going to object to that because other people are enjoying that and having fun. So I think you might consider something more than just background music in your downtown, and try to attract the people that are all going to Modesto or Stockton to have that kind of an experience outside. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to make a comment? Seeing none, is there any other additional comments from the council? Questions? No? Is there any action, a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right.
Before you go on to the next one, I think I need to say something.
Okay.
My reaction to this one is the same one as it was for 4A. Because this is changed now does not mean it can't be changed later. This whole outdoor dining thing was not an experiment. It was a reaction. We had a unique and rather harsh experience we had to go through, and we were trying to do things that we could do to support the businesses downtown. It was not an experiment to see if it was going to be permanent or anything else. It was there to help people get to where they are now. And now we have some issues that have been raised about that set of changes we made. This ordinance puts us back where we were when we started. Does it mean we have to stay there? No. Does it mean we can't experiment? No. It simply redefines the starting place from where we're going to go from here on out. And if there are businesses downtown that want to experiment, or the chamber wants to experiment, or the city council wants to experiment, this can be changed and put into effect in 24 hours. And I think people need to understand that. This is not permanent. It wasn't permanent 20 minutes ago either. We're simply resetting the place where we're at, but we're more than willing to move forward. And it's going to be up to the community to tell us where they want to go. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. We're on 4C now. How many of these do you have?
4C, I got one more after this, and then, so at the last city council meeting on direction from the city council, we, just to clarify a little bit, we did go through the outdoor dining ordinance within public right-of-way. So that, what we would call the dining in the parking areas on Main Street. The ordinance did allow for dining platforms between Acacia Avenue and Norse. Seasonal, it was to be from April to October and with a permit on a yearly basis. They were to be removed on the times that they were October through April. We were supposed to be out of there, and they were supposed to be temporary in nature. With COVID, we allowed them obviously to operate so they can keep businesses going. The direction from the last meeting, the staff did have in the staff report either, there was two options really, repealing or rescinding this ordinance altogether, or we did have some recommendations in there for modifying it if the council desired. So the direction we received from the council at that time was just to repeal this ordinance altogether. So that's what's in front of you this evening, is a repealing of that ordinance for outdoor dining. And like I said, we did provide some modifications if you guys wanted to keep it at the last meeting. But what staff, the direction staff received from council at that time was to move forward in this direction. And that is what's in front of you tonight as a recommended action. So
And
with
it's
that being said,
repealing of outdoor dining in the public right of way in, not the sidewalk portion, but in
Correct.
in the street public
Yep.
right of way, correct? Yeah.
correct.
And this essentially goes back to what we've had in place pre-COVID, and repeals the temporary seasonal street parking or street.
More so than
dining.
just pre-COVID. I mean, pre-COVID is when we allowed them to stay
It goes
year-round.
back to, it gets rid of that, what we had pre-COVID though.
Yes.
Right.
When do we put this in place, Ken? Was this 2017?
Yes, 2017, we put the outdoor dining in
Okay,
place.
so short of COVID hitting and we had those platforms built in the street, how many requests have you had to take advantage of this?
We had none until COVID hit.
Okay.
And matter of fact, the first platform to go up wouldn't even have been qualified to go in because it was an alcohol-only establishment. It was the Wine Vault downtown. It had to be restaurants at that time. Since then, Matter Taste has purchased the Wine Vault, and it's merged into one business, so it is a restaurant altogether now. But at the time, the first platform that went in wouldn't have even been allowed under our current ordinance anyways. It was done for COVID restrictions and COVID reasons.
And pre-COVID, the one that's currently there would have had to been removed by now already too, right?
Yes.
November 30th now.
Well, yeah, under the old ordinance, it was October 30th.
Yeah.
Right. But I fought and fought and fought.
Is there any questions? Comments? Leo?
No.
You've already said your piece. Is there any questions, comments from the public? That's just short, noted. Yeah, with that, is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, Ken, 4D.
All right, my last item tonight for you guys. This is actually just a second reading and adoption of an ordinance that we amended. So it was for the Office of Commercial Districts, Industrial Districts, and Mixed-Use Districts, making them more consistent between the two. And then we did make some modifications to hotel and motel uses in the commercial districts. We do allow, like I said, we did allow for 3-story buildings. In a lot of the commercial districts for hotels and motels, it was capped at 2 stories, or actually 3 stories, I'm sorry. We did allow for 4-story buildings in some of those other districts. After talking with the police chief, or the fire chief, actually, on that, they didn't have any concerns with a 4-story hotel, so we just made it consistent across the board for the district. So a 4-story building to us is a 4-story building. It really got down to public safety is why they limited it to 3 stories. So they don't have those issues anymore. They do have a ladder truck now, so he didn't have any concerns, so he was fine with the amendments. And like I said, it's second reading and adoption this evening for you guys.
Any questions?
I'll move to adopt. Do we waive the second reading or make the second reading and adopt? I'll move to adopt the ordinance.
Second. Go ahead, Dean.
Motion and a second. All right, 4E. Kevin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a second reading and adoption related to illegal dumping, and it really was focused on the recycling center and strengthening the the Sydney ordinance related to people leaving items that are prohibited at the recycling center. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Well, just one question. Does this basically put the penalties in place? Because we've, oh, wait, I'm sorry, yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
we'll come back with a resolution
All right,
with the
okay,
penalties.
all right.
I'll move to adopt the ordinance.
Second, third.
Someone click it, please.
You threw me off there with the third.
Okay. All right, discussion items. A, financial audits. Lisa?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The audits for the city of Ripon and the money purchase thrift pension plan, which is the retirement plan for the non-CalPERS employees for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2021, has been completed by Price Page and Company. Our audits are completed to fulfill requirements placed on us by state agencies and our bonding agencies. We use an independent third-party audit firm to ensure we are in compliance with the laws and regulations. They review many of our transactions, our internal controls, and other policies to form an opinion on the financial statements. The City of Ripon audit is a combination of all the finances of the city. As noted in the audit committee letter from our auditors, Price Page, there were no significant audit findings, no difficulties encountered between the auditors and staff, and no disagreements between management and the auditors. To make the audit easier to understand, I provided a staff report in the city council packet that gives a high-level financial summary of our fiscal year ending June 30th, 2021. And if you want more detailed information, you could dig into the management discussion and analysis, which is on pages 3 to 12 of the audit. And for further details, you can dig into the audit itself. No action is required tonight. We will include the resolutions to accept the audits along on the consent calendar of our December meeting. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
I just make one comment. I think under the opinion, what's important that you didn't read, it says, in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly. That's kind of what you're always looking for. Right, Mr. CPA?
That's correct. And there's no action on that item, we're just a discussion. Okay, any other questions, comments? No? Okay, moving on. 5B, discussion related to the appointment of the vacant city council seat. Mr. Warner, Mr. Terpstra, would you like to give us some background?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, tonight we're here to discuss the process by which to fill the vacancy. Not to discuss the who, but the how. Your staff report has, I direct you to the second page of that, a summary of the process and what we're here to do tonight. I'd introduce that into the record, first of all, and then ask if there are any questions about the process as we've outlined it. Excuse me.
Any questions from the council?
No.
Pretty straightforward.
So tonight we would be approving the application itself and the schedule.
Yeah.
The schedule, the November 10th would be the opening, that would be tomorrow, which would be the opening of the application period, which would close on November 18th. Staff would then coordinate a public notice to be printed in the Manteca Bulletin and post the application on the city's website. November 23rd, council meeting, a special meeting that would be to review the submitted applications, determine the format for the interviews, and the scoring methodology. December 2, council meeting, again, a special meeting to conduct the applicant interviews. And December 14th, a council meeting, which would be the regular meeting, to score the applicants and appoint. That would be the process. The application form itself is also in your packet. I won't go over that in great detail. But certainly we wanted to emphasize as staff tonight that this is about the process and not about the person. This is about how to score and not whom to install. So testimony and certainly council action based on that should be shaped around those pillars, those two common pillars of understanding.
Could you provide just a little bit background on, as it was fairly recent, 2014, I believe it was, when we went through this process with passing of
Sure.
RedNet?
Yeah, for the benefit of, absolutely. So the recommendation we have tonight is really shaped on the events of 2014, which was the last time we had this situation arise. And that, as if you will recall, it revolved around the passing very suddenly 16 days after an election of Councilmember Nutt. And then staff at that point embarked upon a new process and understanding of how this was going to work. And I think if you believe the adage that you learn from your mistakes, you also should learn from your successes. And in that instance, the success that we found in the process was that it yielded a fair result, a decisive result, and an inclusive process. So we went into that with the idea that we were going to utilize the second method by which these vacancies can be fulfilled, which is rather than a special election, it would be an appointment process. The concern with a special election at that time and today is that that process is time-consuming and expensive. And so out of that process and out of those discussions, we yielded the process that we are following pretty much verbatim here. There'll be different questions probably, of course, because of the circumstances. But the application process, the interview process, the scoring method and the like, the scoring method to be developed as we move down the road.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other questions or comments from the council?
I thought it was 2 years into Red's term, but you're saying there was an election 16 days after?
16 days prior, I believe, right?
16 days prior, I mean?
That was me and you.
Yeah, but that
Yeah,
was you, that wasn't, he'd already been in.
Oh, yes,
2
correct.
years.
Oh, yeah, and I'm
Yeah.
saying,
Yeah.
yeah, but we weren't looking, we didn't have the luxury of looking forward to an election that we could fit it into that same
Yeah,
general
no, I
election
just didn't,
cycle.
I thought it was a couple of years. I didn't realize it was 16 days after an election.
Yeah, it was the off-year election.
Yeah, okay.
So, Mr. Mayor, at this time, assuming there are no questions with the process or with the application itself, it might be appropriate to take some public testimony to the extent there is any. I would remind the chair that you do have the ability to impose time limits or reasonable time limits on each speaker if that's something you desire to do. And certainly give the public an opportunity to weigh in on this topic before giving staff further direction.
Okay, and I understand that there's probably a few people from the public that would like to speak, so you can come forward, state your name and address, and we'll try and stick to the 3-minute timer if we can.
She's also got some.
Yes, and I believe at the end conclusion, or if you want to do yours first, or,
Well, he's already.
yeah, you already, here you can go, but don't let me forget, Lisa, yes, you have 2 public comments that were submitted online, but you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. My name is David Murphy. I live at 839 Spring Creek Drive, and I am a voting resident of Ripon. I am here to share my view regarding the 3 options you have in filling the vacant council seat with the resignation of Mr. Tim Wheeler. I do understand one of the options came out of the tragic death of Red Nutt. I'm very glad to see that Tim Wheeler is still with us.
As are we.
Good luck to you in your future endeavors. During the October 28th, 2021 meeting, council discussed legal options for filling a vacant council seat. 1, being a special election at a significant cost, which I agree is a waste of taxpayers' funding. 2 is appointing the next highest vote getter, which I believe Councilmember Dean Euchre put forward, and there was some mixed reviews on that. Item number 3, or option 3, was appointing by application and interview, which would allow others that did not campaign, did not debate, or did not receive a vote to be interviewed and selected by the remaining council members to fill said vacancy. Comments made during that special meeting that the members of the council believe that there may be better qualified people out there that did not run previously is concerning. Yes, it is an accepted practice. Yes, it's an accepted procedure, but is it the right procedure for this instance? The election happened 1 year ago. When you say that there are maybe more qualified or better qualified candidates, where's the list of qualifications? The previous candidates met those obligations. What makes those qualifications valid? My question is it with great ignorance or arrogance that the 4 remaining council members know better than almost the 6,000 votes that the next 2 candidates received during a fair and open election, that their vote matters less? These 2 past candidates received 5,900 votes. That's a pretty good number. In that last election 12 months ago, if you were to perform an interview today or after you pass through this application process, if you are to interview for a replacement, I suggest you start and end with those two candidates that got 6,000 votes between the two of them. After all, those two candidates actually campaigned, debated, submitted, and completed their interview process a year ago, directly and qualifying through the voters of Ripon, who you represent. It is your honesty, your integrity, and your ethics that I, as well as many other voters, would question if you were to show such disregard for the people's vote. Thank you for your time. Have a good evening.
Anyone else that would like to speak? You have the floor, you don't have to fall to the floor.
I didn't fall, I just threw stuff. A little different, not saying a whole lot. Good evening, everyone. Vince Hobbs, 322 Orange Avenue. Speaking of the process that you're discussing, one of the options, as someone who's gone through that process with a local board and thought the process was very fair, that we had an individual that went through an election, resigned from a board a year after they were elected, left 3 years on that term, where that district went through the legal process of soliciting applicants, doing interviews, and voting on the candidate. And why that's important for me to even mention tonight is that I didn't run for that position the year before. But during that year, some things transpired, an interest, the opportunity became available, and I applied. So my point here is that it's a fair, honest, and open process that you're discussing, and I hope you proceed with it. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak?
Lisa. She's over.
Yeah, I know Lisa's got two. I won't forget Lisa's comments. Thanks for the reminder, though.
Good evening. Stephanie Hobbs here, 322 Orange Avenue. Mr. Mayor, City Council, staff. Actually, first of all, I really want to congratulate you for your exciting change and wish you many blessings on your future. And thank you for your last year of service. Appreciate it. Just wanted to address the idea that Mr. Murphy brought up about appointing the next in line candidate for the seat that's going to be open here. And I've done quite a bit of research on this and really searching for the precedents and, you know, the consistency of policy of how other cities dealt with this situation. And I could not find a single example of a runner-up candidate from the previous election being automatically appointed. In fact, most cities opted to fill the position via the exact procedure you're discussing tonight, and some of them chose to do the special election. So there are reasons why setting this precedence of simply appointing the next vote getter in line would not be appropriate. Again, I'm just focusing on the process. Because just like going back and looking at Red Nut's example of when that happened, this precedence, the people will look back on this in years to come because I don't know about you, if you've seen the news lately, this is happening a lot. Ceres is dealing with this situation in so many other cities. So I think it's important to stay consistent. in the future, you know, what if you have the same situation and there's a great disparity between the third or the next, you know, vote getter in that election? And also, you know, a lot has changed in a year. Just like Vince mentioned, you know, maybe we'd miss out on others who would apply, you know, for this position that couldn't a year ago. And yeah, I mean, that would be, you know, anyone can apply, so this is great. And like Attorney Terpstra mentioned at the last meeting, that if that was the intention of the law, then that option would be offered in the government code. I think that's a really important point as well. So I am grateful to live in this free community, and that anyone in town can, over 18 and who's registered to vote, can apply for this appointment now, and or pull papers for office if you decide to go the other direction. So, and I'm also grateful that you've done such a great job navigating our town through these unprecedented times. So thank you so much for that. And I'm just going to trust your action on this. So thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak?
.50 Sandy Lane. My name is Michael Ferraro. I would have to agree with Mr. and Ms. Hobbs. A year ago, I wouldn't be able to apply to your position that's available for the simple fact I was not a resident here in Ripon. And having this opportunity, I would consider your guys' judgment on what Mr. and Ms. Hobbs said, and I agree with them. Thank you.
I don't even talk this much when I'm at work. I'm Kim Anderson, 510 South Walnut. You know, going back to what we were talking about earlier, I mean, if there's a process in place, follow your process. If you want to change it, change your process. I mean, I got up earlier and was not exactly excited about the change in the process, but you did it through you know, reading of the ordinance and listening to public opinion. So I'd say if you want to change your process, do that, but don't change it in the midst of having to make this kind of a decision. I think if you have a process in place, you follow that process, and then if you want to change it when the time comes, and do it the correct way.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak? I'll give Lisa an opportunity to read her 2 comments that came in online.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I received an email from Manuel Lopez, and he states, Council members, I am a 36-year resident of Ripon, and I'm concerned about the challenge your council faces in its election process for the vacant council seat. I know all of you want to select someone who cares deeply for the future of the city. I strongly believe you can only achieve that by soliciting qualified candidates, interviewing them, and basing your decision on what's best for the community. Special elections are very expensive. Ripon does not need to engage in wasteful expenditures. Selection of the 4th place candidate from a previous election is an easy route, but keep in mind that that candidate was already soundly rejected by the electorate. Ripon has an abundance of highly qualified residents that would complement the current council. I believe your role is to make a sincere effort to find that person through a rigorous process. Time is on your side. Please use as much as you need to find the right person. Thank you for your consideration. Best wishes for a thoughtful and well-considered process. The future of Ripon depends on it. And then a second email was received by Roz Combly. I personally think that appointing a candidate to replace Tim Wheeler would not be in the best interest of our city. By interviewing and having a special election, the city can find an experienced, qualified candidate to serve Ripon. Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else that would like to speak? Seeing none, is there any questions, comments, or I think it's maybe time to entertain a motion to move forward?
I'll make a motion to adopt the policy as presented in the staff report and to adopt the application form as presented in the staff report.
Is there a second? Anyone? If not, we have to figure out the process, so we're here to, I mean, we can talk about it further, but,
I'll second.
okay, we have a motion and a second. Okay. We'll move on to 5C. Kai.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. We do have a brief discussion. Staff has been working on a policy for park donations or improvements for a while. We've sought a lot of input, and now we're looking for a little more input and discussion from the council before we finalize it. Before you, I just want to cover a few points that we came up with for the new policy. In the past, we've always just taken it on a case-by-case basis, and now we want to get a formalized policy in place that we can be consistent moving forward. That'll start with the application that will need to be filled out and turned in to the city of Ripon. Staff will evaluate all applications and use a process similar to what we use for the special events permit, get input from staff, get input from department heads, and then make sure that it meets or provides a direct benefit to the city of Ripon and is consistent with the planned usage for the park. So, you know, if it's a mini park that's just designed for neighborhood use and people to walk there, we're not gonna bring in large events that would require, you know, parking structures or restrooms and that type of thing. It needs to be consistent and beneficial to the park site, excuse me. And then also, if it just enhances an existing park, for instance, we just want to replace an existing playground or picnic tables that are worn out, or, you know, plant some trees. We already have trees or other things. That's just enhancing and not really changing the park in a substantial way. All those will be evaluated and be sent to the Parks and Rec Commission. If they approve it, great. If they deny it, then it stops at that level. For some, those are for the, you know, just the basic park improvements that go along the enhancement. The next one would be more substantial, which are gonna change, dramatically change or be more substantial if you wanted to add facilities or something that wasn't existing in the park. You know, so if we, you know, added a volleyball or a hockey arena or, you know, something that wasn't currently there, that would be more significant. That process would go, once again, to the Parks and Rec Commission. If it got approved, there may be other requirements. If anytime there's a new building, it's got to go to the Planning Commission. Anytime that it's more significant, there may be a minor site plan, a major site plan, or some other things that would trigger, you know, sending it to the Planning Commission. If it requires going to the Planning Commission, ultimately it will go, if it gets approved, to the City Council for approval. And then, you know, lastly, obviously, if it's not in the best interest of the City of Ripon, the city does, you know, reserve the right to decline the donation. And so really, we've got a lot of input at the staff level. We're looking for some input from the council, and then we'll finalize something to bring back to you.
Any questions?
I have a couple. 1, 2, 3, the fourth dot down, it says that if it's denied by the commission, there is no appeal. What if the opposite happens? What if the commission says it's okay and somebody in the community thinks that the commission made a mistake? Do they have any recourse after the commission meeting?
So we're trying to simplify it, and so the thought process, if it doesn't really change that park in any way, shape, or form. So we've got old play equipment, someone wants to donate new play equipment. It doesn't really change, it just kind of updates or improvements. It's got benches or picnic tables already, but someone wants to donate and replace some of the older or worn out ones. It's got trees and, you know, that type of thing, and they just want to add to that. It doesn't really change the park, so we just wanted to simplify it and let the commission have a say on that. If the council wants us to change that, we certainly can.
Well,
You should have been at the staff report this morning,
Yeah.
staff meeting this morning.
I've been in this chair long enough to know that there's a good chance somebody's gonna disagree with the decision regardless of whether it's yes or no. This says if you disagree with a no decision, you have no place to go. Doesn't say what happens if you disagree with a yes position. What if that stuff that somebody wants to replace was donated by my grandfather 35 years ago, and I am not real thrilled with what you're gonna put in their place? If the commission says that we're doing it anyway, according to this, I'm done. I can't do anything else about it. Is that what we want it to be?
No, I agree with you.
Or can they appeal someplace?
Well, we could certainly put an appeal process in there. And if you look one more bullet point down, we do have that, even if it goes to the Parks and Rec Commission or the Planning Commission, it will ultimately need to be approved by the council. Staff just thought initially that if it wasn't really gonna substantially change a park, just kind of enhance what was already there, that we would streamline the process, but.
Well, because I have the same question about the next bullet point.
And so.
Because it says if it's approved, it comes to us for reapproval, basically. But what if it's denied? Can the person who gets
Yeah.
denied come to the council and ask? Because they can for the planning commission.
Yeah, and they can, and they can. And we're here to do whatever, to take direction and just have a quick discussion on what you want us to put in the policy ultimately.
Yeah, I mean, to
I'm
that.
gonna put,
Go ahead.
I want to put in my 2 cents. I think everybody should always have the chance to appeal. Because there may be personalities why things don't happen, there could be personal preferences why things don't happen. I think, sorry, but it may be a little more work, but I think anybody should always be able to appeal any decision.
And this is the feedback we're.
Yeah.
we're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that sentiment. I was thinking on this smaller one, I mean, if it's hey, the swing is worn out and we're gonna replace the seat on the swing, like, I don't think that should never come to the council to decide that, but if it gets there, then fine, we'll say, yes, we want the swing replaced, because I don't wanna have to pay for it. If someone wants to donate it, go for it, right? So, I mean, it's fine to have an appeal process, but something like a replacement of an existing facility to me doesn't seem like something that someone's gonna have an issue with. But, yeah, the bigger, larger either changes or additions to facilities, then sure, that seems like a reasonable process. But I know it's something that I'm glad we're taking this on, because, I mean, the past couple of years, I've had several requests for people to do from a park bench to massive facilities, and,
We're getting more.
yeah, it's not,
Yeah.
awesome to have the community to provide that type of support and want to do those types of things, but nice to have a process that's straightforward too. So appreciate the staff's work on this.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments in more direction? You good? Got what you need?
Mr. Mayor, we have a member of the public that would like to make a comment on this item.
Okay. Miss Connie.
name is Connie Jorgensen, and I live at 1230 Willow Court in Ripon. And my question is about basketball courts. And Vermeulen Park has a basketball court, and Kai had fixed the rim. The rim was like, instead of like this, it was like this, and you couldn't make a basket because it just wasn't straight.
Yeah, I would have trouble either way, but
That was pretty hard. The blacktop it has a lot of open, I mean, it's not flat. It has grass growing in it, and it's very unlevel. You can't dribble without the ball just like taking off to the sides. And that I'm concerned about at that park. And my question is, can that type thing be fixed?
Yes. Now, that is already on our list. I have I wouldn't say a long list, but I do have a list of improvements that the city would like to make to city parks as, money becomes available. And so it's certainly on the list. What we're discussing tonight is a policy for donations. And so Connie, feel free to call me anytime with any of the park stuff. You don't need to come to a council meeting. You can call me direct and I'll address any of those. But we are if you want to make donations, that's the policy
if you have
discussion
someone
we're
that wants to
having
donate
tonight.
the updated basketball court,
Donation for the museum all the time.
hey, perfect, we got a policy that they can use now, so.
Okay,
Thank you, Connie.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we got the direction we need there, so department reports. Chief, what do you got for us?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, honorable city council, members of the public, I just have a few quick announcements. I wanted to remind our community that we are accepting police dispatcher applications with the approval of the dispatch services contract with the city of Lathrop from last month that created 4 positions. Looks like we're going to have 2 filled at the beginning of December, but we're still looking for 4 more applicants to eventually fill those open positions. The first deadline ends tomorrow, so if you want to be in the second wave of applicants, please feel free to go online or come into the police department and fill out an application. We will be having a third round later on until all those positions are filled. And then my last item is just a reminder, November 11th at 10:30 a.m., the American Legion Post in VFW Post of Ripon will be hosting a Veterans Day observance ceremony at the Veterans Museum, Veterans Wall, located at South Locust and First Street. We'll be honoring our War on Terror veterans, and hope to see everybody there. Thank you.
What time is that? What time?
10:30.
Guy? Nothing, Ken, just turn the mic.
I do have a couple items. So next Monday, we do have one item on the planning commission. Feel free to come join us if you'd like. There's a cigar lounge and a cigar/whiskey lounge that's looking to get approval at 202 East Main Street. So it's the Events 22 building. They want to split that in half. So we will be hearing that at the planning commission on Monday. And then also, we did receive an application from Bethany Home looking to do a fairly large project, add to their campus over here on the corner of Vera and Main Street. That project won't be heard by the planning commission probably till next year sometime. There's some due diligence we have to do with that application. However, they do want to have a workshop, a public workshop. They have a development team that wants to host kind of an informational night. So December 13th, so it'll be the Monday before the next council meeting, regularly scheduled council meeting. They are going to have a workshop here at City Hall. I think it'll probably be most likely in the EOC room. They'll have the architect there, Bethany Home there, their design team there, and have some stations. They might do a small presentation and then provide opportunities for people to kind of go around to the different stations, provide comments, ask questions, and so put that on your calendar. I think it's at 6 o'clock. They are planning to have that here.
Can you email that to us?
Yes, sure can.
please? Thank you.
And we are gonna try to get something out in the Nixle, and they are trying to reach out to all the properties within 1,000 square feet of the project site as well, so. We possibly can get some stuff in the paper at that time, just to get some interest on it too, just so if people have questions, they can get their answers straight from the development team.
James, anything good for us?
Just water usage report. So our October usage was 21% lower than our 2013 numbers. It was actually 12% lower than our 2020 numbers. So if you remember, that voluntary goal of California was 15% reduction from last year. We were at 12% for October. And then just a reminder, we're at 1 day a week for watering. Even addresses are on Saturday, odd addresses are on Sunday. So.
Okay. Kevin, we're gonna, has a little presentation for us.
Well, oh, are you done? I'm done. Perfect. I was just gonna take this opportunity, tonight is Sarah Collins' first meeting, with the city council, so just wanna take this opportunity to introduce her. We're excited to have her join the city. She's the new senior civil engineer taking over the engineering department, so she's responsible for implementing the capital improvement program, along with a number of other regulatory responsibilities here at the city, so we're very excited to have her.
You took the words out of my mouth. I was gonna do the same thing, but.
So does she have a report?
Yeah, you gotta have something.
We give her the first night off.
No.
Hey, she's an engineer, you know she wants to talk. Like our mayor.
I'm 2 weeks in. I'll give you one next week, or next month.
Perfect. Looking forward to it.
Thank you, guys.
Tom?
Just going to thank Councilmember Wheeler for his service, and as well, and I know all of you share that sentiment as well. And thank the council for their support tonight, re-upping our contract. 28 odd years ago, I became city attorney. I was offered the position, and my boss said, you should represent real estate developers, not the government. And then he rethought it, and he said, but it might help you understand how government thinks. 28 years later, I have no idea how government thinks. But we're gonna keep working on it until we get there.
However, our attorney tells us is legal.
Well, at least you got that part. That's the most important part, right there. Absolutely. But thank you.
Thank you. Gavin?
Yeah, I just wanted to take this opportunity, if Hunter, you could pull up the financial summary. This is the financials for this fiscal year through October, and this is really the operating revenue and expenses of the general fund. We do not show transfers that we normally transfer to any street and road reserve fund or the capital outlay items that we need to do. This is really strictly just the operations of the general fund, and again, really to try to show the health of the general fund. So the red and green columns on here are the monthly revenue and expenses, and then the solid blue line is the general fund balance from last fiscal year, that was 2021. And during that fiscal year, we ended up with about a $950,000 general fund surplus. Again, just the operating surplus. That didn't include the money that we transferred for future capital replacement and such, for police cars, et cetera. And then the dashed blue line is where we're tracking so far through this fiscal year. So you can see, at least for the last 3 months and even through July, we're tracking very close to what we did the previous fiscal year. So happy to answer any questions.
Seems like we always tend to track pretty close.
Right. Right now, so far through the fiscal year, our revenue is about 3.5% higher than what we had budgeted, the actual revenue. And then actual expenses are about 2% lower than what we had budgeted, at least through October of the fiscal year.
In this chart, there's usually a true-up when some sales tax revenue comes in. When does that normally hit? February?
February is one I know for sure, right, Lisa?
February and July?
November? Yes, November.
Oh, that's why I was thinking one should be,
November, February.
yeah,
Yeah.
one should be coming up, but I mean, you don't see the jump in last November, but I was wondering if we're anticipating a bump up in this November to set us above where we were tracking last year?
We will,
even
for
higher?
the gas tax.
Yeah, I would expect that over time, our sales tax revenue. But, it's funny watching this, you're seeing kind of just the bottom line summary of this, but it always seems like as some revenue goes up, other revenue starts going down, and it kind of works itself out. But I could send the council a little bit more of a summary, or I could do that next meeting too, on sales tax, where we're at, especially as we get that
I knew
true up.
normally we'd see those in there, I just wasn't sure which month, if it happened already in October, if it was.
It's an odd timing, but yeah, I think November's the.
It's the audited statement, but that's at 6:30, so it doesn't do any good now.
And it depends on what the guy was thinking the day that he decided how much sales tax he was gonna give us this time from last time and save it till next time.
Or give to somebody else that
Well,
was
even the
supposed to go to
process
us.
changed, didn't it?
Yeah. And my last comment, it's been a pleasure working with you, Councilmember Wheeler. Really enjoyed getting to know you and working with you for the last year, so you will be missed.
With that, we'll give you the floor for a minute here. You can say your last goodbyes, but you're not going, you can't go away. You still have to come see us, so.
Of course. No, I realized after the last special meeting, I didn't really explain where I was going. We kind of just announced my resignation, and so it came out in the paper, and everyone kept asking me, hey, did some of your family die, or do you have a family emergency or something? Because it just said family reasons. But, I just want to say, we made a decision as a family for the sake of our kids and our future to move out of state for now, for foreseeable future. And I am still going to be flying back and forth quite a bit here. I still keep my office here, and I'm doing a development project here still, and have a lot invested in the city and plan on being here still a lot. You might see me more, actually, now I'm gone, because I have more time. Because as I'm here, my family's not here, and so I have nothing to do but see people. So, but I just want to say thank you to the residents who voted for me, and I know that you'll be in good hands with the current council and their decision-making. I don't believe any of you are ignorant or arrogant, so I think you'll be good in your decision-making process. And I just want to say I really loved working with you. It's been really cool. It's been a very neat process, and I've come to respect each one of you in a different way. And so thank you to the council for all you've done. Thank you for the staff. The staff here is amazing, all of you guys, and it's a pretty special place to be a part of a team that gets along and can disagree but come to the right conclusions on things as a team, and it's been super special to be a part of. So thank you to all of you, and the city's a very special place to be. So thank you guys.
Thank you. Mr. Zuber.
I don't know if I can top that.
I know.
I'm not gonna try. It's been a pleasure, though, having you on the council for a year, and I agree with what you're saying, is this is a great group of people in this town, and your contribution, while only for a short time, was the kind of thing that I've grown to look forward to from the people that serve on this council, and I'm sure you're gonna have a long and prosperous life ahead of you, and trust me, we're gonna keep track of you to make sure you don't mess it up. I have 3 questions for staff. One, where are we on that street striping contract? I get asked a lot.
Yeah, actually, Ken and I met with them, yesterday? With them yesterday, to kind of lay out Garrison Way and some of the parking stalls. So they're gonna be working on that to the end of this week and then into next week. So
Okay.
hopefully it'll be wrapped up
I
here.
noticed the markings on the street on Garrison, down by the fire department this morning. We had a meeting, and there were, the T's are in the street, so I figured something was going on.
Yeah, they're going out, they're laying everything out, and then we're gonna kind of go out there and make sure we're on the same page, and they'll go,
Okay.
we'll move forward.
The other one, I wanted to thank you for the work that your guys did on that park behind the waterfall at Oak and, what is it, 2nd Street down there? The pile of stuff in the street. I was wondering how long it was gonna take to get out of the park and onto the street, because it needed some attention. It looks they really did a good job. They trimmed everything up, and it really looks inviting and attractive, and yeah, it needs to, because, I mean, we get a lot of complaints all the time, but they need to know that when they've done a good job too, and that place really looks nice. That's it.
Mr. Restuccia?
Yeah, so, Tim, you know, I think that, you know, the decision you and Nicole made were for your family, and I respect that. I mean, we hate to see you leave, but you made a family decision. You're gonna get haters out there not liking your decision, all that. That's gonna be, you know, expected, but you're doing the right thing. You know, family comes first before anything else, so, you know, good luck to you. Secondly, we just went through a process of how to go about an unvacant or vacant seat. I'd like for us to codify this, because if it happens again, we're gonna go through the same thing. There's gonna be stuff all over, you know, back rooms and streets and parks and coffee shops discussing how this thing's gonna be done. I'd like to see us just codify that you got two choices. One's gonna be the interview process, one's gonna be an election, so that it's not gonna be, every time this comes up, we have to go through the same thing.
Yeah, I've, in the course of researching that and preparing for this meeting and as we went through the events of 2014, I've seen that cities do codify the appointment process. They don't try to dictate that you can ever call a special election.
Right.
But given that you have those general two choices, a special election or an appointment process, if the council doesn't choose the special election process, then the ordinance goes through the process of establishing how that's going to unfold. And staff can work on something like that, bring it back for you. Maybe when we get done with this particular cycle and this particular vacancy, it might be something to take a look at early next year.
I don't know, look at the age of the people up here. I don't know if you wanna wait too long.
Hey.
Except for you. No, I didn't expect it to happen right away, but I think it ought to be looked at.
Yeah.
Anything else?
That's it. Oh, and, to all the veterans in the room, thank you for your service.
Mr. Euchre?
Well, goodbye, but I'll come and see you. Me and the mayor are gonna come to your place in Montana to go hunting.
Come on in.
And maybe what we'll try to talk the city staff into, like, maybe taking have our next meeting, like, you know, staff.
A retreat there?
A retreat.
We're not late for it.
I'll have a big meeting space. It'll be,
For the record, Kevin just broke out in hives.
We're just upgrading togos.
it'll be on me.
The 209 Times isn't here, right?
That's it.
Anything further? Okay, well, with that, I know a lot has been said, but I will reiterate, we have appreciated your service, your time here. It's been a pleasure. We wish you well in your future endeavors, and I know you'll be successful wherever you go. I do look forward to coming to see you, so if we show up at your door and want to go hunting, make sure that there's a bed available for me.
Done.
Perfect. But yeah, look forward to seeing you when you're back around. You're, welcome here anytime, so.
Thanks, Dan.
Yeah, and you can take me out to lunch anytime too.
Yeah.
But, no, thank you for your service, and, as we said earlier, we, passed a resolution making, November Veterans and Families Month, so just wanna thank every veteran and the families that, make the sacrifice as well. Kelly, what's the dates? Christmas tree lighting, it'll be before the next council meeting, so November 29th, and December 9th is the Christmas Lights Parade. Both of those are before the next council meeting, so make sure you hear about those. Appreciate everybody being here. I know I say this every council meeting, but we do appreciate the input from the public. It's good to see faces. It's wonderful to have you all here. These things are monthly, so don't forget to come next time too. With that, we'll call it a night. Meeting adjourned.
November what?